Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and due to situations out of my control and the individual I was intending on having as the final installment of our Profiles on a Veteran series, this week's profile is going to just be delayed. It'll be another time, and that's just how it is. Sometimes life happens. In the meantime, there is quite a bit going on around the world that can and does impact most of us in some way or the other, and I want to cover those things with y'all, make you aware of some of the things that have been going down recently. That's where we're at this week, and as always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. All right, so let's jump right on in with a few of the situations I want to cover with y'all. The first things first is there's been some progress for military spouses in regards to making occupation, transferring jobs from one duty station to another a little bit easier. Evidently, in January 5th of this year, the Service Members Civil Relief Act was passed, and that requires states to provide reciprocity in accepting valid occupational licenses from previous jurisdictions. Now, the reason why this is coming up now is there is a military spouse who was in Texas, and she had a certificate as a school counselor. She was certified in Ohio and Missouri and was trying to then transfer it over to Texas. Texas said no go. She said, yeah, it does, and took him to court and won. So that sets precedence in this case and should make it easier for more military spouses who are trying to bring their jobs from one duty station to another. Now, that reciprocity exists inside the United States. However, if they are sent abroad, there's no guarantees there, hon. So this is good. It's definitely a win for military spouses and for those who've worked really hard in these fields and want to be able to continue. It gives them the opportunity to do so. And I think that's great. Because honestly, it can be rather expensive and difficult and time consuming to transfer those certificates and credentials from one state to another and have to go through the process in every state. And I know this because I've looked into it in some regards with my career path and some career options I had been pursuing or considering to pursuing in the past. So this is definitely going to make it a little bit easier for military spouses to get what they need to done and make PCSing just a little less stressful. So good on you for that one. That one's great. And honestly, it says that 132,000 active duty spouses are in occupations like that. So this is going to help quite a few people. Maybe it won't help you, but you might know someone who it can help. Pass the news on. This is a win, definitely. So moving on to the next article, and the next one is so you remember the good old days of COVID when the military was like, everybody's got to get vaccinated? Yeah, back in February of 2022, and they said, we're going to kick you out if you don't get vaccinated, including a National Guards member who was kicked out the week after receiving a presidential commendation. And there were individuals who didn't want to get the vaccine due to religious beliefs because of how the vaccines were constructed using embryo stem cells. And there was quite a few service members who sought to get an exemption, a religious exemption, and were completely denied. and were removed from the service due to this. There was over 8,000 service members were discharged due to this. And yeah, then turn around a year later in this February of 2023, the military decided to rescind the requirement. And now recruitment is down. And guess what? In fact, they're willing to take you back now. You not only don't have to get the COVID vaccine, it's optional. But for everyone they kicked out, they'd like you to come back. Yeah. Well, so far, only 43 individuals have taken the military up on that offer. Most of those were from the Army, and I forgot the other branch of service. I'm apologizing for that one right now. But yeah, according to CNN, only 43 have over more than 8,000. So basically, military completely disregarded the concerns of service members, whether it had to do with health concerns, religious concerns, and said, you must do this because we want to make sure you're going to be healthy and XYZ. And then it turns out my husband, he waited to the very last minute, did get the vaccination, and then promptly got COVID. Like 6-8 months, a while afterwards. So it didn't really do anything to stop the spread of COVID in the service. And it really grated people that they were not willing to consider religious reasons for a waiver. And the military is kind of notorious for not wanting to give exemptions. One of my friends, the one I know, her husband spent ages trying to get a medical exemption because he medically could not get the COVID vaccine for various reasons. And was given the absolute ring around, thought he was going to be discharged, finally at the last minute pulled out a exemption, but it was very rare. Very few exemptions were given. And now you wonder why these service members don't want to come back. Maybe because quite a few of them wanted a religious exemption because of their beliefs and are very frustrated that their religious beliefs were not respected. Yeah. So that's a thing. Recruitment's down. They're trying to fix it. I don't think it's going to work. Honestly, I'd love to see as many good people in the military who are genuinely devoted to this country and upholding the Constitution and protecting and serving as possible. It is unfortunate we lost so many great service members due to that decision. And I say that because I know a few that did get discharged because of that. And it was a loss. It was a loss to lose those individuals. I don't know for certain that every person who was discharged was a huge loss, but at the same time, if we're low on recruitment, if we're low on numbers, maybe we should work with the individuals we have and figure out how to make, come to some arrangement. I don't know. Especially on something like that, especially when they later rescinded the requirements and everything. So, that's my little 2 cents on that one in all sincerity. Moving on to the next article. This one is adjacent to the situation going on in the Middle East, and just giving you a heads up on that association with this article, just in case. The USS Mason, well, let's back up a track. So, after the situation in Israel kicked off, there was a situation where the tanker MV Central Park, which was flying Liberian flags and managed by Zodiac Maritime, was taken by pirates. And the crew is 22 sailors from Bulgaria, Georgia, India, the Philippines, Russia, Turkey, and Vietnam. And so the ship was taken by pirates, and the um, Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group was in the area due to the situation in Israel. And part of the reason why they said that they took the tanker, the pirates did, was because of its association with Israel due to the fact that one of the backers or financiers happens to be Israeli. And well, yeah, that didn't sit well with the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group, and they sent in the USS Mason. They sent in the USS Mason, which promptly terrified the heck out of these wonderful pirates. There is sarcasm there, definite sarcasm. Yeah, pirates got scared out of their mind, jumped in the little ship. I don't know if all of them got in the ship before they were able to take off, and they tried to make a little getaway. It didn't work. Yeah, don't mess with the U.S. Navy. So they picked up the pirates, dealt with the situation. The the MV Central Park was able to go about its business, but it was 35 miles south of the Yemen coast in the Gulf of Aden at the time. And what proceeded to happen is rather astonishing. Ballistic missiles were fired from Yemen at the USS Destroyer. Now, according to the Yemenis, or the government of Yemen, it was the Houthis who said it, the Houthis who are backed by Iran, and it was from Houthi-controlled areas that these ballistic missiles were launched from. Now, good news so far is that these two ballistic missiles do not seem to have caused any damage or injuries, and it was a failed missile strike. As of right now, that's how it's being reported. It's a significant escalation to the situation. This is not the first instance of Iranian-backed terrorist organizations attacking United States military since the October 7th situation in Israel. It's not the first instance. So far, the United States has managed to de-escalate all of those situations, but it's just, it kind of rubs. It rubs the wrong way. And personally, if Yemen is so keen on disassociating themselves with the terrorists who shot the ballistic missiles at us, then maybe we should talk about some extradition. Or maybe Yemen should let the United States come on into their country and pick up the people who thought it was fun to get trigger happy with the U.S. Navy. So that's just my take on it. In all sincerity, I just wonder what else is going to happen in regards to this. And in the article that I am citing is from the Blaze as of November 27th. So fairly recently, there'll probably some more updates and information that come as time goes on. And who knows, maybe we already have something in the progress in regards to that situation. So stay tuned. But yeah, there's definitely a lot going on in regards to our military. And I think sometimes it's easy to overlook, miss, not realize that there are situations that military is dealing with almost not all the time, but not irregularly. And especially this time of year, keep them in your prayers. And yeah. So moving on to this next segment, it is going to be a little bit more intense. Listener discretion is advised. I am going to be covering the situation in Israel. And just because of the nature of what has gone on and what is going on, it is a rather hot topic and not developmentally appropriate for all listeners. As a mother, there are definitely aspects of the situation in the region that we have had to circumspectly and carefully articulate to our children in a way that is appropriate for them and their ages. We've not disclosed everything, and nor do we intend to their children. And I'm responsible as a parent of guarding their childhood. So I'm making that statement very clear right now in case you do happen to be listening with little children. This might be a time to put on earphones or pause and wait till they are not around. That said, hostage situation. Hostage releases started last week in a significant manner with a temporary ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. In these hostage exchanges, the initial intent of Israel was to get the children and women back as much as possible. And initially, it was not completely clear what the strategy was. However, later on, the Israeli government made it very clear they wanted families released together in groups. They wanted mothers and children together as much as possible for the well being of the families. And they, over the last 5 days, because it was extended to, and so as of the time of this recording, 28th, 31 children have been returned. That leaves 8 children unaccounted for. Now, the really aggravating aspect to all of this is that initially Hamas led people to believe that they were in control of all of the hostages, that they had the hostages. Now they're claiming they do not have all the hostages. In fact, private citizens, mob families, organized crime families, and other terrorist organizations have 30 or more of the hostages, including some individuals such as the 10-month-old and his 4-year-old sibling and that family. So here's a couple things with the double talk. They claimed from the onset, we're taking care of them. There's nothing to be worried about. Blah, 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 blah. You took a freaking 10-year-old. Back the train up. Who takes 10-month-olds, 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 9-year-olds from their home and then sticks them in tunnels or squatting in buildings, having them run? And by the way, this has been documented from one of the hostages, run from building to building to dodge the IDF. Not to mention, they were not adequately feeding them. They were not regularly letting them go to the bathroom. They were not allowed to speak in a regular voice. They had to whisper only. And then one of the girls, who was released without her mother, informed everyone that no, not only was her mother with her the entire time, they've only took her away from her mother 2 days before the exchange. And then they lied and said they had no clue where her mother was. They hadn't had her mother in their custody. So they can't be trusted. There are elderly women who are coming back who've not been able to be given their medication. The families have sent in Red Cross packages with the women's medication. They were never given it. Some of the packages were returned. There is a young man, I'm not exactly sure his age. His mother was on an interview. He has a medical condition which requires that he has specific medication. He has now gone over 52 days without that medication. One of the young boys had a peanut allergy. They didn't care about keeping him away from peanuts, which his allergy was severe enough it could have killed him. Another young girl was forced to make a publicity statement in a video early on, saying that she was on the point of death and they gave her wonderful surgical care and saved her life. Well, first of all, she wouldn't have been on the point of death if they hadn't shot her multiple times before kidnapping her. And second of all, oh, by the way, she was returned with 2 bullets in her leg and still had to go undergo surgery to get them out. So I'm not sure if what that says, but obviously it wasn't very great medical care they were receiving, if at all. On top of this, I'm rather disappointed with the Red Cross. The Red Cross has not been insistent on seeing these hostages, on getting to these hostages, on getting them their medication. Finally, the Red Cross has stepped up and is getting them in the exchanges and returning them into Israel. That's about freaking time they're doing something, but I'm very disappointed in the Red Cross handling of this situation. As of right now, very few, only 3 United States citizens have been returned. Now, way to go, Thailand. I don't know what deal Thailand brokered with who and how, but Thailand has managed to get the majority of their citizens back. And I'm not sure what they gave them because it doesn't seem like they gave them anything. So props on Thai diplomacy because you got your people back. So good on you. Good job. Russia magically got their person back for reasons I don't even know. That was just magically tokenly tossed on one day that the Russian dual citizen was being handed over. Again, don't know what backdoor deals Russia was doing to manage that one. But yeah, as of right now, we have not seen many United States citizens returned. I believe there's still an Italian citizen being held. It just blows my mind. It's been over 50 days. What did they think when they were doing this? The people were going to be okay? The people were going to forget? No. You took children. You took babies. And just the amount of absolute deceit coming from Hamas. One of the reporters said it rather eloquently that they don't even bother to report most of what Hamas tells them because they can't trust them. They're not honest. Until it's verified by another source, it's not worth repeating. And that's pretty much where it's at right now. And the absolute level of just atrocities that have been committed, and the fact that people are trying to back and defend Hamas and their behavior is absolutely ludicrous. And then the fact that now that Hamas has even openly admitted that private citizens of Gaza were participating in the attacks and took some of the hostages. So whatever happened to, oh, the Gazans are all completely innocent? Well, obviously, some of the innocent civilians are not so innocent. I just am frustrated beyond belief with the reporting of this and the way the media community on the large has been handling this situation. So let's talk about what happened in exchange. So there was a 1-to-3 ratio given. For every 1 Israeli returned, Israel would release 3 convicted terrorists or in the process of being convicted terrorist criminals, actual criminals, individuals who had stabbed other individuals, who had blown up or attempted to blow up suicide car bombs, who had shot indiscriminately into crowds for the sheer intent of killing Jews, and in some cases didn't actually kill any, just, injured them. Mass shooters, murderers. One young boy, they were saying, oh, he was arrested at 12. Oh, this poor soul. Yeah, watch the video of his arrest. By the way, you can look up all of their names. There's a list of them. You can only find it on the Jerusalem Times. No one else seems to want to talk about this. Yeah, that 12-year-old, I watched the video of him stabbing a Jewish 13-year-old boy to death. But he's free now. He's back with his family, that wonderful little murderer. Yeah. There is a 50-year-old woman, a disfigured 50-year-old woman they were trying to trump up sympathy for on the mainstream media. You want to know why she's disfigured? Turns out she was a suicide bomber. She'd turned her car into a suicide bomb, and when the car went off and blew up, battery acid got all over her. And instead of dying, the Israelis pulled her out of her car that she blew up trying to kill them and gave her medical care and saved her life. She was then sentenced to prison. Yes, that's just such a wonderful old lady. We just heartstrings tugged on there. Yeah, no, not really. These are the kind of people that are being returned. And because Hamas took babies? Oh, wait, no, they still have the baby. They still won't give back the baby. I have no sympathy for an individual who decided to become a suicide bomber. And because of the grace of the Israeli medical system and government, survived. No sympathy. You made that choice. You are an adult, grown woman. And the fact that you're now free to wreak havoc in more people's lives because terrorists decided to kidnap children? No, this is not equal. This is not equal at all. We should be getting 3 hostages for every one of those terrorists. Now, final statement on this. One news outlet had the gall to then accuse the Israeli government of not respecting Palestinian lives. That because they were willing to return 3 Palestinians for the sake of 1 Israeli, that somehow indicated they valued them less? No. The Palestinians, the Hamas, value their people's lives less. They think that 3 of their people are only worth 1 Israeli. So, that's not even everything I wanted to bring up. I'm rather ticked off with the UN right now and several other organizations. Let's just say I thought Me Too meant something. And if you know anything about what happened on October 7th, and you can still back Hamas, and you're supposedly all on board for Me Too, you need to check yourself. Yeah. So, a lot still going on. A lot of U.S. citizens still stuck in harm's way. I double-checked the State Department pages, and there's now paths for individuals in Israel to get out of Israel. The State Department has multiple avenues for that. However, the United States citizens, 500 of which who are still stuck in Gaza, including that mother and her baby. Now, this is a Palestinian-American woman who went to go visit family and got trapped in Gaza. There's still no way for them to get out. They can fill out a form, though, because filling out a State Department form is so effective. I'm sure that gives them all sorts of warm, fuzzy feelings. At some point, something's got to be figured out because it's not just 20-something Americans being held hostage, 3 of which have now been released. There is a 500 approximately Americans being held hostage in the West Bank. Aid workers, health workers, missionaries, Palestinian Americans. I'm not sure what our State Department's doing, but someone needs to get their head on straight. That's where we're at right now. I don't know how much that will directly affect any of you guys. Again, there are some organizations that are trying to help these families. And if you are interested in that, I will do my best to link those below as I have in the past. And heading into the holidays, maybe that's a good thing to give. We talked about giving earlier this month, but there's a lot of good organizations that could use help. And some of these are the organizations that are trying to help these families rebuild their lives. That's where I'll leave that right now. Final note is the young American Israeli girl who was finally returned to her family. is an orphan because of Hamas. Americans were killed on October 7th. Don't forget that. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife.